Hello, and welcome to Mind Your Head, a space for people to share their stories, talk openly and honestly about their own mental health challenges, and to give some listeners some comfort in knowing you're not alone. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we record this podcast, the Gubbi Gubbi people. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Indigenous peoples. We honour their enduring connection to the land, waters and culture, and recognise their invaluable contributions they make to our communities. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Welcome to Mind Your Head, Andrew. So good to catch up with you and see you again after, so many years.
11 years now, hey?
Yeah, I think we just worked it out then. 11 years we haven't seen each other. So when I first started this, you were top of my list. Not just because of the history that we've had and known each other for a while, but, everything that you advocate for, not just mental fitness, but, your physical fitness as well. But firstly, how's life treating you these days? You mentioned it before. It's pretty busy.
Mate, it is. It's been a long time. And, I look back when we were in the army together, how our lives were and what your perspective was and what were the day-to-day concerns. And now fast forward all these years and think that I'm a married man. I'm living on the other side of the country in Perth and have a beautiful wife and 3-year-old daughter, which just gives me so much purpose and so much grounding, to be honest. And it also gives me so much drive. Like I'm a driven person, but now like it's on another gear because you're providing for people you truly love. So it's been a very special journey since we've last met, and I've been afforded many opportunities, and I've grabbed these opportunities with both hands and ran with them, mate. And I'm excited to talk to you more about it and connect.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll definitely go deeper into that. But I guess for the people listening, we know you as Pap.
Yeah.
Last name Papadopoulos, but in the army, everyone gets called by their last name, so we know you as Pap. And to be honest with you, like even back then, when we went join the army together in 2009, even back then, I thought you were always going to go into bigger and better things. You had this aura about you. Even like you've been in your presence, I was just like, man, this dude is operating on such a high level, even back then. Mm-hmm. And then, fast forward and we'll talk about it later, but where your sort of career's progressed and what you're doing with your life. I chat to Radmore, who I'm just like, I'm not surprised at all at where you've sort of gone in with your life and your career. But going back to the army, what made you want to join?
I've always really enjoyed working in a team and like collaborative, collective, objectives that I can contribute to, not to just be the sole person pushing the needle. And I found that there was an opportunity to do the gap year and get exposed to something that I think that would be physically challenging, mentally challenging, allow me to grow and expose both my strengths and weaknesses. And it certainly has shaped a big part of my life. It's a big part of my life. It still is to this day. And I'm super thankful for it. Met incredible people. And it kind of sent me to a trajectory in both my career, but my personal values too. So it was a unique opportunity, and I'm glad I went there and did it.
Looking back on it, did you find it was like almost a rite of passage, boys becoming men? Did you think about that at all?
No, not necessarily. I know that I was living at home, going through school, and then all of a sudden separation for a year, traveling around the country and, working within themes about life and death and looking after your mates and, going from what school kids are concerned with to now thinking about the theatre of war and what those potential consequences are. So and with those particular pressures, that's by design to vet out those who shouldn't be there or, expose people where they have strengths and they can continue to grow and foster those traits. And yeah, to me, I found it as a refining tool and a journey. And there was I've got many flaws and it was exposed many times, but it also reinforced things I knew about my character and my values that I'm very proud of and still walk my head held high today.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. It was almost like thrust into the man's world, and I remember going back home afterwards, being around the same group of guys I was with, a couple of years ago, and not feeling like I fitted in. I just felt like, fuck, what are we all talking about? And I felt like, I don't know, that I experienced or seen some things or heard some things in that time in the army where it just put life in perspective. And I think it was such an amazing foundation for me to kickstart sort of life, out of school.
Yeah.
What did you find the most challenging aspect of that gap year?
You think I've got quite a heavy family history of mental illness that I've grown up with, and a family and a dynamic that's quite vulnerable, and I've felt that I had to take the lead and provide and be there constant, and being away, I was unable to do that, and so I always had that in the back of my mind during gap year, and still being a young man or a boy turning into a young man, I felt like I had allegiance there and responsibility, and that was the reason to leave, to go back and assist my family in their time of need and everything like that. And there's so much regret that I carry from leaving, because I felt like there was so much room for further growth, and to find my potential. I really feel like I was just scratching the surface, and I had ambitions within the military and what I wanted to contribute and be a part of. But at the same time, after hearing about the passing of Daniel Halpin, and sort of connecting with some guys through a company I started, not long after leaving the defense, I realized like I'm going to be way more effective in helping people outside the institution than going back in. Because seeing Daniel take his own life, I felt not a sense of responsibility, but him and I had a great relationship. I looked up to him during that time, and when he had moments of struggle, I wanted to be his soundboard, and that conversation stopped once I left. And I just thought, man, I let him down. That's how I took it. And so, that was kind of one of the instigators of Trek for Vets, and one of the reasons why this is something I'll do to the day that I pass, and hopefully can leave something behind.
I love that too, because you would have been such an amazing soldier. You were even in that year, you were easily the best soldier. Absolutely. In everything though, and not just your physical stuff, you're a leader, you're a natural leader. I think everyone sort of gravitated towards whatever Pat reckons. No, you not felt that? Whenever Pat reckons, all of us were like, well, it fucking must be right, if Pat's doing it, we'll follow Pat. And that was your natural ability, I thought. And even what you said then is just you could have gone back in, but I totally agree is that, you'll have such a more impact on the world and on people far beyond what you could have done in your military career. Yeah. What was your most enjoyable parts? I know, we've got some pretty funny stories of
maybe not podcast appropriate.
Maybe not podcast. But looking back on it, is there any, me and Bram will sort of have chats about, and some, even now we sort of giggle at some certain things that happen in the army.
Absolutely.
Do you have any favorite stories or anything that sort of makes you laugh still?
Man, I just really, really enjoyed the culture, and the camaraderie, doing things that are unattainable outside of the defense, and going through, when you look back at it now, you're thinking that sucked. The amount of shit that you have to go through, whether it's just the boredom or it's the hardship, it's the risks, and I think knowing that you're doing something together that's bigger than you, but you also rely on each other unequivocally, that's what really builds that camaraderie. And I think, to share to your point, that sentiment of going back home, seeing those lifelong mates and thinking, this pales in comparison to what I had. I met guys for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. So, that's something. I think the bonds, the friendships, and those experiences of stuff that, I won't get the opportunity to do it again.
And it's that bond that you said, it's, it's created so quickly in a short amount of time. What do you put it down to? Is it the shared suffering? We're all in this, the Hurt Locker together. we have to have each other's backs. We have to lean on each other or it's not going to work. Is that what, creates that sort of bond quickly?
Yeah, definitely. I think, in the fitness world, in the industry, you can emulate parts of that by creating group fitness and shared suffering and some form of accountability. But the buy-in is only as much as it is to the person that's like, I can just leave this room whenever I want to, or I quit, or it's not worth my time. But then you go probably to sporting teams. They've got more incentive. They're getting paid, or there's a career path. There's a the win or lose aspect to it, and you see that camaraderie really being brought to the light. But then, obviously, going into the military, you're making a career choice that your life could end potentially, or the lives of the people around you could have. There's real world consequences on the actions that you make. So those deeper themes, I think that's the context around it, but then also what you actually do and knowing that, hey, we can't get through this unless we all pull together, because there's the discrepancy of abilities, there's a discrepancy of drive, and you have to get everyone across, otherwise we all fail. So it's that forced institutionalization of the psyche, mind, body, and spirit that happens from basic onwards. And I think that's
it's magic.
It's obviously by design. Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned earlier on that you sort of got a family history of mental illness, and I think a lot of people, especially in the social media world, they'll see people with big presence like yourself. You're very confident in the way you act, the way you talk. Obviously, an amazing physical condition. You can leave your shirt on. And people would often assume like life's easy for you. Life's always been easy for you. It's so easy for people to make assumptions that person's lucky or never gone through hardship. But for you personally, it couldn't be further from the truth. And if you're happy to share, go into a little bit more detail about sort of your family history of mental illness and what was life like growing up for you and a bit of a childhood.
Mate, I think one of the most important things with any interaction and sort of creating that relatability is vulnerability, being vulnerable. And it takes a lot for people to be vulnerable. And something that I've always been so open to do, whether it's in front of one person, a total stranger, or everyone. Because I think, again, I'm proud of the person I am, and I've obviously made mistakes and I'm not perfect, but I know at the base level of what my values are and my intentions are. And so no matter what others may think, I think acting in a space of honesty and transparency and being vulnerable, that's where I've seen my ability to move the needle as much as I aspire to do, to help and to assist and hopefully help others, get through their own journey. So we all have a story, of course, and mine's, everyone has different relationships or associations to their own stories, but mine really did help shape the person I am today and help make some of those key decisions in my life that when I was at a fork in the road, where to turn to. And I think, I honestly had this conversation with the guy I just met this morning. We were in a car together, and when I was about 8 years old, 9 years old, but 8 years old, you're a young boy, you're going through your own world, and life's not that difficult. But when you are going through anything difficult, you resort back to your parents, your family as your safety and your soundboard and your support. But a lot of my angst was coming from the household itself, just because of the mental illness and the severity of that. And seeing, when I was 2, my father had a mental breakdown. He kidnapped me, and he thought that people were out to kill me. And he had this, and
well, he was saving you.
Yeah, so he thought he had some sort of higher purpose from God to save me, and demons were trying to kill me. And so he took me away from the family. And my mother at the time, she had 3 kids, and she didn't know what to do. So that was kind of like, I obviously don't remember, but this is kind of like the severity of the mental illness. And so I've never, and reflecting back, haven't had a real relationship with my father to this day. But my dad was did everything he could do, but was just a very sick man. And when I guess the person who's at point at the house and the provider is unable to do so, and he goes through his ebbs and flows, that impacts everybody. But my mother was also very sick, and she became bedridden for the last 15 years of her life. She passed away last year. And then, seeing my sisters become sick and hospitalized. And so for me, mate, I was growing up in an environment where there was complete instability, constant threats of suicide, and helping my family, whether they try to attempt to commit suicide in various ways, being there trying to work around it. I was there for my sister's first mental breakdown. I got two older sisters, but the youngest one of the two, the first time she lost her mind like completely, and then that set off my other sister, and it was just me with those two girls in the house. And these are the themes that I'm going through. My mates are like, "Hey man, this weekend was pretty tough." I'm like, and I just was in a completely different realm, so I had to really lean into self-soothing and talking to myself, because I end up eventually through this time period, we moved to housing commission, government housing, and the whole neighborhood was that way. And I just saw the suffering around in these broken family homes. I just thought to myself, I don't want to follow this path. Like, I think there's more out there, and these people are hurting, and they're kind of stuck in this cyclical nature of easy to become a victim. It's easy because you don't have the tools. There's no one giving you a helping hand. Like, of course, felt very, very, very privileged to be able to get government welfare and housing, and I'm a big proponent of that. And I've got all my views on that. But just seeing what people were suffering with, I want to create a better life for myself, in my future. And so I did, mate. From a very young age, I kind of really galvanized my mind and calcified kind of who I am and what my values are, what's important. And I grew up in a religious household. Like, we had home church in this place, and used to get all the neighbors coming over every Friday. And these people had nothing, and they had their stories, and they would come, whether they had any inclination of being interested in religion. It was the fact that there was other people who wanted to talk to them. And that's where I've gone through my journey about religion, and where does that play, like faith, the difference between religion and faith, and what's my personal opinions and my journey. And that's a long story. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like, how can I contribute and help others? What are these underpinning values in many religions that I think are really important, and inherently what we should all try to aspire to achieve to make the world a better place. So it's been a big driver for me, and it's always given me real perspective. And I've never really felt sorry for myself when I've gone through anything physically or mentally or emotionally hard, because I've gone through all that stuff. But at the same time, I've seen people that haven't had the choice. In terms of like some of these physical things that I've done and some of the hardships I've put myself through, I'm always like, I'm choosing to do it, and I'm privileged to be able to have the mental and physical capacity to even want to challenge myself. So I think it's given me the ability to do a lot.
I love what you said, man, is that your mindset is a privilege. I love that. And going back, I mean, you said that you sort of, everyone will sort of come together, and it's building that connection, isn't it? It doesn't have to be over, people don't have to always share the same faith, but where everyone's coming together and sharing stories or bonding. It's that human connection that I think that we're all, at the end of the day, sort of thriving for. Was your whole family suffering? Was it hereditary? Was it all the same condition? Why? How come you didn't suffer?
Don't know. So I was living in not a state of fear, but a realization, because my father fell ill at 32, and lost his business, lost the house, lost everything, and obviously his mind and health. And I was always under the pressure, like it could be me at any point. I'm like, I'm just going to live life to the nth degree.
To the fullest.
Yeah, to the fullest, because that could be a time. And it wasn't a pressure that I lost sleep on or I was anxious about, but it was a reality check of saying, this could be something. This could be my future.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, if I can look after my health and be cognizant of that, and be aware of like life is short and precious, and want to give as much as I can. And I think truly what I've gone through and the decisions I've made has really assisted me to have a strong mind, but also just staying healthy.
Yeah, yeah. Is that when you first sort of, leaned into fitness? Was that always sort of your way to escape or regulate your emotions? Or was that a big part of it?
Yeah, I think like religion, like my faith in God when I was young.
Yeah.
I had like someone to talk to, whether praying every day or just knowing that, hey, if I'm suffering, I know there's someone looking out for me.
Was he the only one that you're talking to about this?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And I'm not religious anymore.
Yeah.
But that played a massive role. And I think just being able to, I used to surf all the time, go out skating all the time, and sort of, I guess, leave the household as much as I could at the time. And it was a really kind of traumatic upbringing. I didn't realize until I started to spend time with my wife and her family, and I was just perplexed by how functional things were, and it was just contrasting. And my wife would hear conversations or circumstances, and she's like, doesn't that rock you? Like, are you okay? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I just never registered, and I would always forget things that occurred until it came up in passing conversation. I'm like, did that happen? She's like, yeah, that happened. And so the older I've gotten and now becoming a father, I look back and I'm like, there was some really horrible moments and some really tough times that I can't believe I came out I feel like unscathed.
Well, that's the next question is like, I think we all experience certain things in our childhoods that, will later affect us adults. And at the time, we probably don't realize that, later in life, that's gonna affect us. Is there anything from your childhood that you still struggle with today?
I'm not sure, mate. I probably have to unpack this with a professional, to be honest. But trying to be introspective and try to be objective as much as you can. I'm too close to it.
Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like my actions in both myself personally, in wanting to better myself, but also with my family, like what I want to provide and how I want to be present and how I want to contribute. I feel like it's, I think most people may have this sentiment where I'm going to do all the things my parents didn't do, or the things I'm going to give the best part of, or the best mix of it. And I'll make mistakes for sure, but yeah, I think that gave me a perspective, and I'm cherishing the relationship I'm building with my daughter. She's only 3, but we're so close.
That is?
Yeah. Oh,
awesome.
mate, it's the most beautiful thing.
That is a little girl.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I cherish that.
Yeah.
And I think my past has kind of made me realize that these relationships aren't guaranteed. And I want her to have everything that I didn't get.
Do you have a relationship with your family members or your sisters or?
No, my brother.
Your brother?
Yeah, so my brother's 12 years older than me. He's the oldest of 4.
Yeah.
And he left the house with his wife at the time and their kids when I was about 19, 20.
Yeah, okay.
Just after the army.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand why. And it was only, say, fast forward 10 years later when I was going through the same thing with my family. With Renee. I was like piecing things together, and Renee was slowly sort of introducing like, hey, there's some common themes there. Maybe you should reach out to your brother. And we've connected, and it's been really nice because we're exactly the same.
Oh, he is?
We sound exactly, if you're on the phone, you wouldn't know who you're talking to. But that's been really nice to ignite that for the last couple of years. But as I said, like my mother passed away last year, and last time I spoke to her was before the wedding, and she decided that she wasn't coming with the family, and I just had to set boundaries, and that was the most important thing. And that's something that she taught me, mate. She taught me so many great things about. She did a lot, I guess, academically, and she taught me a lot. And I kind of used what she taught me to create those boundaries, create space for myself and my family. And
how hard was that?
It was hard, mate, because when I got to understand the severity of the situation, and I kind of woke up to it after many years of being conditioned to thinking it's normal and making excuses like, oh, they're vulnerable, and of course it couldn't have happened any other way, and all I want to do is help. I hate seeing this, and like it was horrendous. My mother passed away to me well before she physically passed away. So I was at work when I got a call from my sister, who I haven't spoken to the same amount of times. Hey, my mum passed away, and she was crying. I was like, are you okay? And sort of spoke to my sister about it. First time I spoke to her like 4 years or so. And I just went straight to work, like back into work. Because I knew I prepared myself in every sense that that was the next time I'd get any update from the family.
So you already emotionally processed it years prior, sort of waiting for the phone call.
Yeah, because I knew that if there was ever going to be to rekindle anything, because of the boundaries that I set, there would have to be an admission of fault and done wrong from my mother's side. And I knew that would never happen. So I'm like, I can't keep going back to this. And so I had to kind of galvanize my life and protect what I have. And it was just knowing that was going to be the case, and it happened.
Was it becoming that relationship? Was it becoming unhealthy for you? Massive,
mate.
Were you with Renee at the time?
Yeah.
Oh man.
So Renee and I, we've been together for 10 years now. So this was my mother passed away a year ago. So she's been around this for a long time. But my relationship with my mother has not been healthy for a long time. Yeah, it just took me a long time to realize that. Yeah.
Going, moving forward, sort of join the army. Where did you sort of land up when we all discharged? I mean, we all had the choice of staying on for 4 years and then getting out. I sort of had the same sort of experience with you, where I felt guilty for leaving, even though, you know, my sort of passion for rugby sort of kicked in when I left and was in the army, got out, and my dad was like, mate, why don't you just give it a crack? If it doesn't work out, you could just free enlist straight back in again. And I kind of felt guilty as well, sort of leaving, and I had a few close mates that all stayed on and deployed and that sort of thing. And I've got one of my best mates. He went over. He actually wanted to come in with us, but his the process got pushed back a couple of months. So he enlisted a couple of months after us. He went overseas, and he saw some things, and things happened that he experienced, and he didn't come back the same person. He took him about 6 or 7 years to come back to the old Mitch that we used to know. Like, he lived with me. He couldn't drive a car because the road rage. He would get so angry on the road that he was like, Elliot, can you drive me to this? Like, that was, I actually thought this was going to be him forever.
Yeah.
And it made me think to myself, fuck, I'm happy I didn't do that. I'm really happy at the choices that I made, even though at the time I was like, oh man, I should go overseas. I've been training. I made all these good mates.
Yep.
I feel guilty for leaving.
Yep.
But sort of being close to my mate Mitch and hearing sort of the stories that he went through, and he's still dealing with them today. Like, he's not,
out of the woods.
He's not out of the woods. Like, he's got two young kids, and he's still very, vulnerable in terms of his mental health. And I just look and go, fuck, man, like, I think I made the right decision there. Where did you sort of end up after the army, and how did you get into the fitness space?
Yeah, I think, only just reflecting on it now, getting my family sending me constant reports of guys dying overseas and all that stuff, and them saying, we need you, you can't go. And because I was like yourself, raring to go. And my friends who obviously civvies at the time, they're like, what are you doing? Like, why would you want to get involved? I'm like, it's like an athlete getting ready for the Olympics. Like, this is what you train for. Like, we want to put it into practice. And that was the mentality. That's how they condition you, and they need to. But going home and going back into that environment, and I was, again, lucky to have a home to go back to. But, I wanted to create something for myself. I applied to become a paramedic and started doing my onboarding to be a paramedic. Had a few friends at the time who were in, and over a long period of time of conversations, I had my enlistment date, and they were just like, this is not for everyone in terms of a long career. And seeing what they were going through, I was thinking, I think I want to be more proactive than reactive. And that's where the health, like the fitness industry was I was drawn to. And funny story, due to a lot of things, I was sleeping on my sister's couch, and I had no money to my name. And some of my best mates who did the gap year too, and some stayed on full time, we were on the drink together one night. I was very young, like 21 or something. And I was telling them about this concept, and they came up to me like, Pat, mate, you've got the drive and the will to do something. We just know you just don't have the financial ability. So they both loaned me $5,000 each.
Did they?
Yeah.
To start your business? To
start Battlefit Australia, BFA. Yeah. And so I was working at a gym at the time, and I was building building this narrative, building this business in the background as I was studying my certificates 3 and 4. So that $10,000 enabled me to get my certs, get my permits, get a non-descriptive white van, some shit equipment, 2,000 flyers. I went to every door and knocked and met people and gave them flyers. Like,
did you?
Yeah,
You went door to door.
door to door. Man, this is back in the day. Yeah.
Well, I remember it. Like, I remember Thursday telling me about it all, and it was like the old kettle bars and the kettlebells and the bars and
Talking
stuff.
bars and stuff.
Yeah, and the weighted vest. I was just like, fuck, he's actually doing it proper, like army style.
So I took everything that I learned in terms of group dynamics and what galvanizes, like what creates community, and people were getting tattoos of our mantra, fight your limits, on their skin. People, because I was stuck in the rain, like outdoor training, right? And I had to convince everyone in my company, or so my members, so to speak.
Okay.
I had to convince them that training in the rain is a good idea.
The best idea.
So it's like, if it ain't raining, it ain't training, and that was like, they wore this with pride. They wore the suffering and everything that we did with pride. And I look back on the grueling shit that I took them through. Like you said, jerry cans, tire flips, rope carries, group punishments, no hands on hips. I was used to wear like the cam pants and the boots and all that stuff. And I carried that for a while, and that really created an unstoppable community. And like, we grew quite quickly, and people were paying $20 for a 45, 50-minute session outside in the heat or in the rain. Yeah. They'll come 3 days a week, and had a couple of hundred of clients by the time.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I started with 50.
It was just you.
Just me. Yeah. And then I ended up like employing some really good trainers, and just was fortunate just to have a really good community. And I ended up, upgrading what we did, and was buying like the Encore systems, the torsion bars, the ski ergs, the assault bikes, all as they were coming out. So just continued to invest and bought several vans for the trainers, and I had the ability to, and that really opened the door to start working for a guy who started Active Escapes. So I never had the privilege to go on holidays or go overseas, and that kind of opened the door for like 7 years traveling around the world and running these fitness retreats.
So what were you're hoping for your clients to get out of Battlefit Australia and that sort of thing? What impact has exercise had on not just your physical health but your mental health?
Yeah, it's a great question, because a lot of the lessons learned through exercise, outside like the physiological changes and changing your brain chemistry to have a better outlook on life, put you in a better state of mind. It also proves to yourself that you're more capable, and you're not doing it, not pushing yourself. You're actively getting in the way of yourself and your own potential. So there's a plethora of benefits, and it just continues to show that physical exercise just has to be a staple for everybody, for longevity, for quality of life. And that's obviously, since post-COVID, it's become more apparent for people in terms of the community connection and the psychology. But that, really kind of supported people. I wanted to create a ministry. I wasn't religious anymore, but I wanted to create something where anybody could come and everyone would feel a place of safety and acceptance. And it was super inclusive. At the same time, absolutely belting them.
It's funny, eh? It's like you want people to feel like they belong.
Yeah.
But not fit in, because everyone's different. You don't want people to fit in. You want people to feel like they belong.
Correct.
And be their authentic self in that area, and like go through that, that shared suffering that we talked about in the army. What about your mental fitness? Because I love the content that you put out, because it's not just your physical, but it's your mental, and you have so many good like philosophies and your thoughts around mental fitness. You mentioned sort of your gratitude, and what you're trying to implement is not think exercise as a chore. More of like, I get to do it, and create like healthy habits and healthy lifestyles around exercise. Is that what you try to do?
Yeah, I can't separate myself from it now.
Yeah.
It's who I am, but I understand that it enables me to have more tolerance, to be better for everyone around me, to contribute more. And I think the solution to loneliness is the ability to be able to give. And I think people really find themselves stuck in a hole if they think they're worthless, they have no value. And I think in a group dynamic, when you're introduced into a group, into an unknown environment, we always default to the most negative. Am I going to be the slowest? Am I not going to fit in? I don't belong here. And I've had many times people rock up to outside, the boot camp or the gym, and they would drive off, because they got there and the anxiety, their narrative in their own head got the better and they drive off. And they end up coming back, but it may have taken a few attempts. And I think that's natural as a species for us to think that in a group thinking. But I think what's really important is that we celebrate individuality, because that's what really helps the deficits in other people, and collaboratively we can achieve the end goal. And that's something I really wanted to cultivate, that everyone thinks, okay, this aspect about me that I know is a strength can contribute. These other weaknesses can be lifted by others, but it's something I'm going to work on. And I know for myself that, working on myself, I can do more. I can be more valuable.
Yeah, I love that. How do you build that confidence within someone, that self-confidence that you can sort of push past what you thought, were your limits, or achieve what you thought, wasn't possible?
I run these adventure retreats now, which I absolutely love. And a girl, she said to me, "Pap, you have a unique ability to make people do hard things."
Yeah.
And I look back on my life, I do.
You do.
I really do.
You almost like persuade people, and they're like, before you know it, they're doing it, like, fuck, Pap. Yeah. How did you get me to do that?
And it honestly comes from a place because they know it's coming from a place of love.
Okay.
That everything that I'm doing is to help facilitate something that's going to improve their life and how they perceive themselves. And I think when people feel that genuine authenticity and that connection and see there's safety, because I've shown vulnerability and I've shown what my intentions are and what could be, people are willing to show up. There's no, we're not ordering anyone, we're not telling anyone what to do. We're saying this is what's possible and give them that context. And that's where you make believers, because they believe in themselves.
Yeah. I love that you said before, it's like, you talked about, you've always had this, need or desire to want to help people. What's been the biggest challenge that you've found in helping people?
It's a good question. I think the biggest challenge is probably scalability. I had a company called Everyday 365, and you had the online fitness, like join my program and get these results, and it was successful. We got good numbers and good buy-in, but I had the philosophy behind it was to have the mindset, nutrition and training, and I wanted people to become deep divers and understand their gearing. It's like, why are you geared to want to do training and nutrition? And less than 5% of people who came through wanted to partake in that. Like, just shut up, tell me what to eat, tell me how to train. And I realized doing it digitally in this format isn't an effective way, because you're trying to get across deep concepts and themes through not a two-way communication. And a lot of people are coming to you because they've got their idea of what their success is, and you're creating a barrier. So I had to think, okay, what's going to help? And that's why I changed to Adventure 365, these retreats where I could spend 7 or 8 days with people in these beautiful places around the world and go deep dive and do all these incredible things. Make an impact.
What do you think people sort of overlook when they start their fitness journey? I know that I've got a few mates that are sort of getting back into it again, and they're like, I want to gym every single day for 3 months. And I'm like, why don't? And then, 2 weeks later, they're like, fuck this. Is it consistency over, I don't know, intensity? Is that some of the things that you sort of look for?
I think there's a few things, trying to unpack it. I don't think people realize what's driving them to do it in the first place. There may be a superficial, like, I want a 6-pack, I want people to look at me, I want confidence. And some of these superficial desires or intentions to start doesn't mean they're not worthy. Just when push comes to shove and you're tired or something's inconvenient to do the thing you need to do, you don't have a real reason to stick with it because it's something you haven't really thought about. And if people could really think about, what would it mean to me if I achieve these goals? Does that mean I can actually be confident in my own skin and potentially open up conversation to find connection with others? Does that mean I can have the ability to connect with my grandkids or children because I can actually actively play with them? Does that allow me to begin to respect myself and love myself, or does that help my career? Like, I think if we go back to some of those probably deeper mechanisms of thought that might be in our subconscious without us consciously probing ourselves, like, why am I starting this? Because when it's the 5 a.m. alarm goes off, and you're like,
you're gonna need something more, don't you?
Man, I'll just get a 6-pack later.
Yeah.
You know, like I just won't eat breakfast. I don't know what people come up with. So we really need to try to tether those habits that we want to create with something that's really important to us.
Yeah.
And that takes time to recognize that. And sometimes it takes a mission of going, I'm on a trajectory I'm not happy with myself with, and expose vulnerability and go, I need to deviate now. Otherwise, maybe I won't be able to get back.
It must be tough though with clients is creating that awareness and honesty within them. Is that a challenge in itself?
Of course. Well, you got to look at the commercials. Like, you can't have this funnel going, hey, come join us and let's start with this big, deep thing. That's what I did with my digital business. Yeah. So it's really about getting started. And so how can you create a safe space? Like Fitstop, the guys I'm working with, we've got this ability to create this safe space. It's inclusive, but you've got absolute weapons inside the classroom of people who are just starting out, and it works. And so if you get people just to feel the thing, like the endorphins, the community, the connection, and just continue to repeat that, then it starts to open doors for other conversations. So it's sometimes you just can't start with
something deep.
Yeah. You got to kind of fan the flame of those initial motives that they're coming through the door, and that's where something turns long term in a lifestyle.
It becomes addictive, doesn't it?
Yeah. And if you're going to have if you're going to have an addiction, there's better ones to have than others. But it also, like, I think particularly now in the modern age of being able to spend time with a group of people and feel like there's a sense of community, because we don't have that anymore. We've got this underlying, you got this underlying anxiety, this free-floating anxiety that you can't pin it on anything. Like, why am I anxious about? Why am I stressed? Why am I short with myself and the world? Like, why is this happening constantly? And this is where this contributing thing comes into play, like where you feel like you've got value. It's like, oh, I provide this value to these people during these transactions. That makes me feel like a part of, a useful part of society. We don't have like the local butcher, the local builder, the local teacher. A lot of the things that we get or the things we do are given to people or received by those that you have no association with. So there's so much commodities and there's so many good things, but there's no real tangible thank you, Elliot, for making that for me, that this has meaning to me. It's like, I'll throw this out in 3 months when the next one comes, the better one. And then what are we doing in our careers that we feel like we're, contributing to society in a way that's meaningful?
Yeah, I love that. And something that I really admire about you and your mindset you mentioned earlier is that it seems like you never fell into a victimhood mentality, which it could have been very easy for you to do. How do you break free of that?
I just think it's I think I was raised with high self-esteem by my parents
early on.
Yeah, in terms of know your value, know what you're worth. Doesn't matter what you don't have. Doesn't change in how you can impact others and make other people feel. And that over time, I couldn't articulate it at the time, but over time, it was the realization that the closest relationship we have is ourselves.
Yes. So
if I'm going to if I want to give and contribute to others and be better for others, I need to make sure I put myself first. And so that victim mentality that is easy for all of us. It's honestly like the least a barrier of resistance, right? Is to go point fingers at everyone else, because you don't have to look at yourself in the mirror and go, you didn't show up. You're not doing the work. And unfortunately, knowing that this relationship I have with myself is my only answer to get out of the things that I'm going through, that just always stuck with me.
And it's often overlooked. I hate it when people say like, oh, that so-and-so is in love with himself or is arrogant, he loves himself. I look at it and go, who else is he supposed to be in love with? You know what I mean? Like, I love it when people are all in on themselves. And like you said before, it's the closest relationship we have is the one with ourselves. And I think the day that my life changed was the day that it sounds selfish, but I put myself first in every regard, and especially my health. And that really like flicked a switch in my head that I was just like, I can't be, you know, the best fiance. I can't be the best son, brother, you know, if I'm putting other things first and not myself. And I remember Jordan sitting me down, my fiance, and pretty much gave me a nice way, but she pretty much gave me an ultimatum and was like, you know, I don't want to have kids if you're going to be like this. So
boundaries.
She set boundaries, and she was like, I'm not, you know, this is the standard. I'm not letting anyone sort of cross it. And that I was like, holy, because at that time we've been together for 5 years, and we were talking about kids and families. And when she said that, I was like, holy shit, like something needs to change. And I love that what you said. You did a post, and it was, I'm not defined by my circumstances. I'm defined by how I respond to my circumstances. And I follow this guy called Peter Crone who talks about sort of psychology, and he's got this really cool quote. It says, "The degree to which we resist reality is the degree to which we suffer. The only reason we hold on to anything from the past is so that we can be justified today. You know, it's because mum, dad, this person. It's about learning to let go of everything you're holding on to. Life is coming from you and not at you."
It's brilliant.
Brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's look, and that's, again, before I ever talk about some of my stories, some of my background, I always say that we all have a story. You know, there's varying degrees to it, but it has nonetheless impacted you because that's your perspective. And exactly what you said, we're not defined by our circumstances, but how we respond to them. That is what my mentality was from a young age, and I've always carried that through. And that was always sort of subliminally sort of woven into everything that I've done in my life. And you know, I can be defined by my actions, and I'm proud of most of my actions. You know, I'm in a net positive. Yeah. You know, most people are like, perhaps a nice guy. most. Yeah. Yeah, mate. So it's been a really it's been an emotional roller coaster, but it's just given me a lens of real perspective, which makes it rich.
You said before that you're, you know, the relationship with yourself is the most important. Have you experienced rock bottom before? What was your lowest point, do you think?
I think it was definitely the interactions of my family early on. Like, and just, no, not even that, like probably just prior getting married.
Really?
The 12 months leading up to my wedding day, knowing that, bending over backwards, doing everything, trying everything. Probably, several years there of just going through that, feeling helpless. Like I'm giving everything in every sense of it, and I can't give any more. And everything I give is not enough. And that frustration of going, this is a pivotal point that I've got to decide, do I continue to lean into this that's tearing me apart and eventually probably, you know, interrupt and ruin the good things that I have for myself and for others, or do I, you know, create those boundaries? And I knew that creating those boundaries meant the eventuality of, I'm not going to talk or see any of these people who, quote unquote, my family, who I meant to love and give unconditional time and everything to. So it's almost like a death of a relationship, but many of relationships happening in the space of a few years.
Fuck, that's wild. I'm actually going through something similar at the moment too with my little brother. So it really hits home actually.
It's hard, mate.
It is hard. How have you navigated the world of social media? Since I started this podcast, I didn't have social media beforehand. I found myself having a very toxic relationship with it. I think I was too consumed about views and likes, and more so putting content out that I think people would like rather than putting content out that I like. And once I started the podcast, I got back into sort of social media again. Like you said, I had to set boundaries. I'm not putting anything out unless I like it, you know, and I don't care if it gets 0 views. I don't care if it gets 0 likes. You know, what I'm putting out is a representation of who I am and what I'm proud of, regardless of what everyone else thinks. And I really had to be strong with that because, you know, I try to encourage, you know, free speech, and people are allowed to have opinions on the podcast or guests or topics we're talking about. I respect everyone's opinion. We're not always going to agree. So I don't like to delete comments or anything like that. I like people to have their own opinions. And there were times where people were having an opinion that vastly disagreed with mine, and Jordan was like, "Do you want me to delete the comments?" I went, "Nah, leave them up there. That's fine. I respect that people have different opinions." And it made me, but on the flip side of that, I would have like positive people going, "Oh, I love that episode," and then I would be like, "Oh, that episode's good." And then someone would be like, "I hate that episode." I'm like, "Oh, fuck, episode's bad." So not only did I have to ignore the bad comments for my own, sanity, I actually had to ignore the good comments too, because I couldn't live
in this
yo-yo thing going, well, that person likes it, so it's good, and then that person doesn't like it, so it's bad. I sort of had to remove myself from the good and bad comments and just be like, I appreciate it, but it doesn't affect what I'm doing. This has no the effect of how I'm going to do the podcast, or this is because I kind of look at it as my art form. So I can't really let the good or the bad sort of influence what I'm trying to do.
I think you just came to a realization that you have to go back to your why. And your why didn't come from external validation. It came from like an inner need or want to be able to share and create a platform for your own ideas, or your guests' ideas. And if we give the power to others to hold our worth, we're always going to lose. And because we're either going to, like you said, follow those who scratch our itch, that ego, like, well done, Elliot, that was fantastic, you're going to the moon, and you will bend to the knee to whatever they want. And that's obviously the people, culture, society. And then obviously the others, you allow people to tell you that you have no value, that you're stupid, and all the nasty remarks that it comes with social media. So I think, and I had this conversation today with a peer of mine at Fitstop, and she was like, Andrew, I don't understand how you have the ability to say and do things online and just get absolutely torn apart.
Do you?
Yeah, so because I guess to give some context, I've always been an advocate of talking about everything. Nothing's off the table, because my perspective on conversation is that you and I will have a disagreement, but if we're both going into this with the objective of wanting to learn and know more, we're not going into it wanting to prove the other person wrong, then what happens from that is two things. One is either that I have to know my content better and deeply, which is important because you're obviously challenging it, or I adopt your perspective because you've proven to me that this is a superior way of thinking. I'm like, it's a positive either way. Not everyone shares that sentiment.
Yeah.
So, if I'm talking about Australia Day, the Donald Trump administration, yes or no vote, whatever it is, because I really enjoy geopolitics, something like global stage. And so I've always had a deep, keen interest on all that stuff. And it's a chessboard, right? It's crazy, intricate. And a lot of these themes are shown to the public in ways that are designed to evoke a response. And so we can get really riled up about it.
They want that.
Yeah, they want that, right? So, and because not everyone has hours to kind of deep dive or interest, we're happy to adopt these bites, or I respect Elliot, I'm going to take his word for it. And so we're very much adopting other people's opinions, not creating our own. And so when someone's against that, they're not only against what you're saying and what you've adopted, but that also you take it to, you're against my values, you're against the people I know and love. And I think
it becomes personal.
Yeah. And I've got this like conspiracy theory about it, where there's a few different layers to it. You've got two parties on opposite sides of the story, and the majority of those people, they can understand the other side, why they've made decisions. Not necessarily agree, but understand. But those majority are silent, and it's the outliers on that continuum on either end, the extremes. They're the ones speaking for those party. And so now the majority who are silent believe that the other side are those extremists, and vice versa, so that it doesn't allow for communication, and that particularly on socials. And then party leaders want to continue to flame that because you're galvanizing your group. Like, you can't like those guys. Their policies mean A, B, and C, or they're this and that. They're the enemy.
Yeah.
So like, we'll keep this going. Yeah. And then the news like that, media likes it because it's clickbait. Because if you are already on an agenda and have a bias here, and then the algorithm is feeding that you're in that echo chamber, you just keep feeding it to yourself and believing it and clicking and supporting and Patreon and this and that. And then government, it's a great way for government to remove accountability for their poor policies because they can say it's the other side is the reason why you're suffering.
How toxic is it, eh?
It's a system that by design is to serve those in control.
Yeah.
And if it's all about party preservation, centralizing power, it's never for the common people. So governance isn't governing.
No, not at all. Has that been the most challenging time or moment or aspect of social media is dealing with the hate and people? I often see like debates online and it's almost going around in circles because I feel like this person wants to convince this person of something and it's vice versa, and there's no meeting in the middle. There's no seeing, a different perspective, seeing a different view. It's just like, it's like almost like someone who's religious and someone's not religious, and the religious person's trying to make them believe in God and the other person's thinking, no. That's what it feels like. Is that what you've experienced? Is that the hardest sort of part of, I guess, social media in itself?
No, not for me.
Not for you.
It's not. I don't find it difficult. I find it interesting and predictable because
do you?
it's a medium that doesn't
Yeah.
doesn't allow for long form conversation, and that's why I think podcasting's been taking so well.
Yeah.
Because people can actually hear the opinions of others and deep dive into why someone thinks that way, and challenge each other in a respectful medium. But social media, we know the algorithm. It's quick. You've got to get people's attention, so you make it extreme. You breed that extreme views, and then people are just happy to jump on people. And there's no accountability. If I said something to you, I'd have to receive the consequences. But obviously online, I can have a ghost account, and even if I didn't, what are you going to do? Who cares, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're a species new to this and this social experiment, and we're doing it terribly, predictably, and by design. But I have also been very thankful for social media because it's enabled me to have a platform, to do really good things, to start businesses, to provide a living, and then most importantly, to connect. And, I don't wake up in the morning going, man, I'm stoked I'm having a positive impact. Or I put a story up or a post going, man, that's gonna make someone's day. I don't think like that. But when you receive messages and passing conversation, people bring up previous posts and all these things, you're like, I'm glad I deal with the fallout of social media. Well, what's tough for social media? And for me, Elliot, it's the time away of being away from the day and being present. That's what's hardest. And if I could not have it in my life, I would. And this is a funny statistic. I put up a post. It's my 5,000th post.
No way.
And it was a recognition. I felt ashamed at the same time of going, I've hit 5,000 posts. Like a sense of like, you've wasted so much time, because I divided it by 12 years. It was like 1.2 posts per day for 12 years. Talk about consistency, but like that's been such a significant part of my life. And I've shared like lessons learned after 5,000 posts, and it really resonated with people because it was just the extreme end of this is what this can do and can't do. And I'll have to share it with you, mate, because I think a lot of the things you used to speak about and represent kind of is seen in this post.
It's crazy, man, when you think about it like that. There's like, it's almost a double-edged sword where it's it's your business. You can do so much impact, but at the same time when you do it like that, I'm just starting out of it now, and it's just the amount of time it takes out of your day to get content and to document it, doing it for the right reasons. But at the same time, you do have a life to live. You're a husband. You're a father. It takes up a lot of your time.
That's right, and it's about becoming disciplined and prioritizing windows of going that this time, these days, this is what I'm doing.
Do you do that?
You
set boundaries like that. Yeah.
So this year for me in January was my preparatory phase for the year, because last year I was just keeping my head above water with so much going on in my life. I didn't really have the opportunity to kind of have that element of reflection and refinement at the beginning of the year. I was running an adventure retreat over New Year's in Queenstown, in New Zealand. So I just came straight back into work going, there's so much happening. And I was there with my family, but I had 1,000 tabs open in my head, thinking I've got to contact these people, got to move this, got to do that. And it was felt. And, all those things we talk about, like what I want to be as a parent, as a person, what's important to me, was being, obfuscated. It wasn't really the clear picture that I want to have.
How do you when you got family time?
Mm.
How do you get everything out of the head and be present?
It's about having it's about being as methodical as possible, having all the information centralized. So the more detailed orientated you can be, you don't have to think, I have to remember these things. I got to get back to these people. It's like, it's scheduled, it's detailed. I just open up the spreadsheet. I just open up this app. It's all there. So you can actually disconnect.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I love that. Have you ever had a unhealthy relationship with social media? Something like, in terms of being, what I sort of struggled with was worrying about likes and views and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's again, it never rocked me in terms of my self-worth, but it definitely had bearing on how I felt, influence in terms of like, man, that's booming. How good's that? And you get that endorphin rush. That's fallen flat on its face. Oh, that sucks. And so this was like the lessons that's learned. Like, don't let, and again, it may not even be people, it can be algorithm, it doesn't matter. The pressure comes from things that aren't in our control, that we're trying to control. We can't be the architect of the people.
It's so strange because like I'll put something up, and because each platform's different too. So I'll put something up on Instagram that I love. All right. I love it all, but there'll be like one clip where I'm like, oh, I can't wait to show people that. And it flops. And I'm like, well, I still love it.
Yeah.
But then you put it on like Facebook and it fucking goes through the roof. And then you put it on TikTok and it goes through the roof, or vice versa. And I'm just like, what is going on here? Like, what audiences are on different platforms? But at the same time, I'm like, it doesn't matter if it flops. Like, it doesn't matter if people like it. Like, I'll get people that'll say, oh, that reel went off. And I'm like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. Like, I don't want it to be a thing where sort of I get those endorphins or that dopamine hit of things going off. What brings you the most joy and what fills your cup?
Being a father has been a profound change in my life.
Has it?
It's like sitting down with your bestest friend, wanting to watch your most favorite movie that I haven't seen, and just watching it, reliving that favorite movie with them, every scene. Yeah. It's like, how sick was that? I love, like, half of my daughter, she's super inquisitive, and it helped me slow down my life. It would stop. There's an ant's nest, or there's pollen on a bee's legs, or we go and see the crabs between the rocks at the beach, and being able to strike that curiosity that I've always had, but being able to share it with someone who's equally curious, and you can help them, really fan that. So it's been really precious, and that fills my cup. And seeing that I can have this best friend for who knows. There's an expression I heard not long ago that stuck with me. It's the days are long, but the years are short. And I guess raising kids, you're like, man, these days are long. It's lack of sleep, the emotional roller coaster, the always needing to give them attention whilst you're stressing and thinking about everything else. Like, it beats it out of you. But then you look back, oh, they're not a baby anymore. Oh, she's not a toddler anymore. Oh, she's going to kindy. Like, it's those years just fall through like sand in their hands. Yeah. So that's really made me kind of cherish it. There's that, and there's connecting with people. Yeah. And then there's me being in the hurt locker.
You love being in the hurt locker?
Love it. Live for it.
A lot of people say, getting the hurt locker, that's something that I don't struggle with either. I love getting in it. What's something that you struggle with? When people come and they do a workout, and you're not convincing them to do a workout, but you can see on their face that they're just like, oh, fuck, I just want to get this over and done with. Whereas for you, you thrive in that environment. What's something that you struggle with, that you struggle to do? Please tell me there's something.
Nah,
there's nothing.
I don't know. Like life's hard. Life's like everything's hard. There's like we all have weaknesses, and I think there's it's just every day you've got challenges. Yeah. There's nothing like I don't ever arrive to something going, oh, this is scary.
Don't you?
No, I don't think so.
I fucking love that.
Like I have moments in my life where I'm like, yep, this is the vice around my head. This is the pressure. This is where I need to grow and step up. And I've proved to myself time and time again, it's a phase. It's a moment in time. And every time after that, I grow and expand a bit more. So kind of building that mindset. And I think ultra endurance really sets this in play is like you can't win the race at the beginning, but you can lose it. You know, if you can go well too hard, or the mentality of like the race doesn't begin until you want to quit. And the ebb and flows of ultra running is like you're on a high and then you're on a low. So when you expect the lows to be there and they come, you're like, this is expected. And these are my points. You know, these are my SOPs of when this happens. This is what we do. And so that's really helped me.
Let's talk about the ultra marathons. What's up next? I saw the one you did in Switzerland last year.
I got Ultra 250.
How good! Like
beautiful
part of the world to be racing. You know, you would almost stop and look at the moments where you're just thinking, what? Like, where are we? Like
every step.
Was it every step?
Absolutely, mate.
Like, how good's this place? How lucky are we?
Yeah. So I live in Perth. Perth's phenomenal. Flattest part of the world, I swear. And so I'm training for an event. It ended up being 275 kilometers and 17,000 meters of a cumulative gain. So that's over 2 Mount Everest on top of each other in total.
Hey.
You know, of this. Yeah. So it's substantial. We don't have that in Perth. And so I used just to jump on a treadmill on incline in my garage, just look at the garage door for 5 hours.
Look at the ceiling.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, this is going to pay off when I get to the Alps. And so be able to do what I love, physically pushing myself and having that. And the best thing I love about it, mate, is singular focus. So all I have to worry about today is just moving forward.
The next step.
That's it. And there's rarely you get that. You might get that in a hard workout that lasts for 40 to 60 minutes. But, you know, we're going 36 hours straight, 20-minute nap, 24 hours straight, 2-hour nap, and then, you know, finish the rest of the course whilst you're in some of the most pristine environments in the world, doing it with one of my best mates and feeling absolutely privileged that I've got everything to do that. And so that was an incredible experience. And I've got a 100K race coming up in 5 weeks in Victoria. But the big one for me is Tour de Gents. It's in Italy. It's the Dolomites. It's 330 Ks with 24,000 meters of elevation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've pieced this scenario together where I'm doing 2 Switzerland retreats, adventure retreats, back to back. Then 5-day break where I'll go up one of these big mountains, and then I'll do the 330K race, and then I'll have some time with the family.
I think you'll need it. I think the body might need a rest.
Yeah.
What do you want to get out of it? Why do you like doing it? Is it a mental challenge? Is it, you know, being proud of yourself? Is it accomplishment? Like, why do you do it?
So, like, the experience itself is phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's the lead up. It's the knowing that, hey, man, knock, knock, you got 330 Ks to run in 12 months' time, you better shape up. And so this constant, I've got this constant in the background of not pressure, but like I'm thriving. I got purpose. Yeah. And that was something lacking after the military.
Oh, you need a goal.
I love it.
You love it.
I don't need it. I thrive off it.
You thrive it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so knowing that everything I'm doing, all these little bricks I'm putting together and stacking together is going to equal to something that I really appreciate. And it's not like a boasting thing. It's not an ego thing. It's like I'm able to do it. And it gives me so much joy and structure and zest for life. And it also helps other people in various ways too.
I got up at 3:00 in the morning and did a 71K.
Sick.
Never ran. The most I ran ever was about 5Ks.
What?
And I felt like my whole life I would always quit. I felt like I would just do enough to scrape through and never actually push myself to see what my limits were. I think, you scratch the surface a little bit in the army with some of the stuff we've done. But I always felt like I would finish something and I always felt like, fuck, I think I had more left. But I was too afraid to figure that out or find what that more was. And I went down to the Gold Coast Marathon and 2 of my mates, they trained for it. They did 42 Ks, killed it. And they ran across the line. I remember like being in the crowd watching them across the line and thinking to myself, what have I done? Like, what have I done to push myself? Like, I saw how proud they were of finishing. They've done all the training. They got a great time. I could see the accomplishment on their face. And I remember like just thinking, this is sort of after I stopped playing footy, and I was like, what have I actually done? Like, how have I challenged myself? I didn't tell anyone this because I went through I made a decision that I wasn't gonna, how you tell people things, you don't follow through with it. That was a huge thing for me. So I was only going to say it to someone if I was probably going to do it.
Probably going to do
No,
it.
properly. Oh, no, not probably.
Okay. Yeah.
Properly going to do it.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So I remember saying to Jordan, I was like, oh, just letting you know, I'm going to run to Noosa and back. She's like, when? I was like, tomorrow morning. And she's like, why? And I'm like, I just want to see if I could do it. And she was like, do you need anything? Yeah. Like, what time are you getting up? I was like,
Legend.
I don't know. I was like, I don't know. I might just get up at 3 a.m. and just see how far I can get. And I remember like getting up there and I was like, oh, I just want to do it and not quit. Just not quit. Just push through it all, because I was always afraid of quitting in every aspect of my life. And I remember like getting up and I was like, got to Coolum, which is about like 10 Ks, and I was like, oh, I'm feeling pretty good. And then some of my running mates were like when you run for a long time, little hills feel like Mount Everest. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And I hit one hill and I was like, yep, I know what you mean by that. And Jordan met me at the Noosa Surf Lifesaving Club.
Turnaround point.
That was a turnaround point. Took my shoes off, had blisters already, like ankles started swelling up. And she was like, do you just want to come in like the car and I'll drive you back? And normally that would have been such an easy out, like, fuck yeah, like let's just drive back. But I was like, nah, like it got to a point where I think it was creeping in, this quitting mentality was creeping into different aspects of my life. And the burning thought and what you talked about before is like, what's that deep thing that's going to be, your driving force? And mine is like, I want to be a father that my kids are going to be proud of. I don't want my kids to think that, dad quits when things get hard. So even though I haven't got kids yet, like, that was like my thing is if I can overcome this, it's going to filter down to different aspects of my life moving forward. And Jordan was like, you sure you don't want to lift? And I was like, nah. And I remember like, you got to a point in Noosa where you can see Maroochydore where I live. You can see it in the distance. And I remember just saying, oh, fuck that. I should have got that lift. But like, I made it back. Like I was hobbling, like Jordan would like come back. She's like, where are you? I'm like, oh, I'm in the, it's nighttime. It's taking me 12 hours to do. I'm stumbling home. I realized I've never got this before, but like when I stopped and went to go again, the pain would be incredibly worse. So it would be easier if I just kept going and don't stop. So I was just like hobbling, and I was like, I got a cold plunge of mine. I was like, crank the cold punch up and get me in there. And I remember like sitting there just feeling, after 12 and a half hours of doing it, just feeling so proud of myself that I didn't quit, even though I couldn't walk for a week. All my knees was, swelled up. And I think that was like such a turning point in my life where I sat there after the week, I healed up, and I had this weird thought, like driving back out to work going, I reckon I could have gone further. Even though that I thought that was my limit. In that moment, I was like, oh, I probably could have gone further.
You definitely could.
You reckon?
Mate, if your life depended on it or someone else's life depended on it, like what the human can do is incredible. It's just, it's the mind.
100%.
The reasoning behind it.
And people ask me like that moment, well, what was it like? I go, yeah, physically it was hard. No doubt. Like it was pretty painful. But I think mentally that was like one of the hardest things I've actually had to do to fight off those demons and to push further than what we're actually capable of. And I remember finishing it going, fuck, we are actually way more capable of things than we actually think we are.
Of course.
Aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Your internal dialogue, and again, this is the relationship to self, and your internal dialogue, you're either against or in your own corner. You're fighting yourself every day. You're creating a barrier. You're creating reasons why this is this and that. Or you realize, hey, you can do this. I can, I will, I can, I will. And you hear these incredible stories of the feats that people can do. And I think the more you either read up on history or you investigate a certain subject about incredible things that have happened, you just think, wow, I'm a piece of shit. Like I can never feel sorry for myself. But I think that's a big part of it, mate, is where I've always had the mentality, as soon as I want to quit, that's where it starts. And I've built such a mindset now that I haven't wanted to quit anything I've done thus far. So I'm still out there going, what is something that I'm just like, I can't do this. I'm quitting. And there has been moments like, this is tough, this sucks. But there's one point in the race, actually, I don't know how many days of running we were doing, but we were going on this massive climb. And these are like, what I think what a lot of Aussies don't get, like not only how high these sheer cliffs are, but you're in the dark, you got wind chill, wind just blowing you sideways, ice and snow, not much room to sort of navigate on these ridge lines in the complete darkness, and you can slip and die. Like, and that was a constant throughout the race. And so we're like, I don't know, completely sleep deprived. I'm going on this race, and we're freezing, and we get to this little hut that wasn't expected, wasn't on the race map. And like, yeah, come in. And you go in, and you can resupply, and there's a fireplace, there's racers sleeping, they put a blanket over you, they give you hot soup, and they're like, what else do you want? And you're just thinking, I just want to sleep. That's all I want to do. And you have to force yourself to get back out. And so a couple of minutes there, let's get out of here before we stay too long, get too comfortable. And then we're on this descent that just went for, it was like, oh, I've got a 6.5 hour descent. There's like no way of going around it. I'm going down for 6.5 hours before I get to the next climb. And it was all in the dark. And so there's no like picturesque sort of scenery.
Yeah.
And the course guys were just assholes. And rather than just following this wicked road that would go down this dam and all this other stuff, they would make you go up into the bush where it's all boggy and wet and rocky. And then you go a couple 100 meters up, and then you come back down, and you've only gone down like 100 meters.
The worst possible.
Yeah, they're just trying to like accumulate gain as you go up and down. And so it breaks rhythm and breaks routine. And I just remember thinking, fuck these guys, like course coordinators, like really stitching us up here. And then I thought to myself, yes.
Thank you.
This is exactly what I wanted. This is exactly what I was looking for. I was running for 50 hours or something at the time. And like, this is it. This is the gearing that I wanted. And it was just this inner peace of feeling on a mission, leading the boys who were behind me. We got this guys and just one step after the other. And that was the highlight of the entire race, even though there was so many epic things that happened. Like, that was what I was looking for.
That moment of hardship.
The moment of going, this is fucked. Like, we're going past people who are in their sleeping bags, not the sleeping bags, they're space blankets, asleep on the side of the road because they were just like, I'm done and tired and tapping out, and people quitting and stuff. And I'm like, this is it. Yeah. This is what I love, because I've grown from that. I would have crossed the finish line and gone, that's good. I don't want that. I want, like, I was questioning my existence at some point, but I, like you did.
Yeah.
I did it. And if I can do that, what else can I do? Oh, this relationship's hard. I'm going to work on it. This business is hard. I'm going to work on it. My life's hard. I'm going to work on it. Because you keep proving yourself. You keep putting that vote in the ballot box every day that I am that person that I will elect myself to be.
I fucking love that. All right, we got some quick fire questions to finish off.
Okay.
So you can answer them as quickly or as long as you like. What's something you prioritize now that you didn't in say your late teens, early 20s?
Organization.
Oh, really?
Yep. Yeah, just like when you're in your late teens, early 20s, you've got time.
Yeah.
You've got no other responsibilities. You don't realize like how much can fit in a day and how much you can waste in a day. I think becoming a dad, businesses and all those things, I like what time is everything.
What's your purpose now?
It's just a gift, man. It's to become more capable and make as much impact to as many people as possible in the most profound way as possible.
I love that. What's your deepest fear?
Probably to lose my daughter would be my deepest fear. Yeah.
What's a life lesson you learnt the hard way?
Oh, life lesson I learned the hard way. Actions have consequences. Whether you think no one's watching or everyone's watching, every action has a consequence.
If you could go back to a time in your life, where would you go and why?
Man, I'm happy.
You're happy where you are?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. How do you define success?
I think success is if you know that if your day was up, you can sit down and go, I gave it everything and I'm proud of what I've done. I think that's success, and that looks different to everybody. Actually, to be honest, not to be honest, but just again, because these are fast questions.
Yeah, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Did you say what the definition of success is?
How do you define success?
Yeah. I think it's like when you said when you can fall in love with yourself. Because everything important comes from that, both internally and externally. When you can really be proud of the person you are I think that's the definition. That's my definition of success.
Be your own best friend. I think that's actually it. No, there's one more. Bit of a tough one to finish off for you. If pain and difficulty are inevitable parts of the human experience, how do we learn to embrace them?
Well, it's to understand that with pain, there's purpose. The purpose is either to teach you a lesson that if you keep doing it, it's going to keep being shit. So you got to deviate, or there's purpose behind the pain because on the other side of it, it's going to be something that's better for you and the people around you.
What have you learned about choosing the right partner?
This is a good one. So Renee and I have been together for 10 years. A year into our relationship, I broke up with her. And I said some pretty horrible things. I said to her, I need someone who wakes up every morning who's just driven, who's passionate, just gets after it. I need that in my life. And because I was an idiot, 25 at the time, had no idea what I was talking about, after a week or so, we got back together and she said, I've been thinking about what you were saying. She's like, my passion, my purpose is to cultivate a family and be the best mother and best wife and have the most best family. Yeah. And I said, who's to say that's not the most important thing of all time? And what I realized from that conversation, mate, was that your partner does not have to be everything to you in terms of not have to fulfill every aspect of your life. So Renee and I have this, we've developed this code where I'll go deep into a subject that she couldn't give two shits about. And I'd pour my heart and soul into this, and 15 minutes later, I'm like, what do you reckon? And she goes, cool. No, what? Sorry, I wasn't listening. And it would kill me. And I realized, oh, hold on. Renee doesn't have to be interested in some of these eclectic things that I enjoy. So I've got my friends who I have these conversations with, these experiences with, but there has to be important parts in that relationship that you both share, of course. And there has to be, the understanding of common values. And so I think that was really important.
I love that because it's so often that we pour all our expectations and everything into one life partner, thinking that they've got to fill us up or provide us with all the...
Be perfect
in every aspect, talk about everything with each other. But I actually love that there's, not so much roles that different people can play, but, you don't have to put all that pressure on that one, life partner to fulfill everything.
Because it sours what initially got you guys together and the beautiful things that you have. And they're true things that can fulfill the life partner aspect of what you want to have in someone. Then you can ruin that by certain, not even superficial things, but things that you can actually extract from other groups of people and have it all.
So just to finish, there's a quote that I read the other day that actually made me think of you. It's not about what you have, it's about what you do with what you have that separates winners from losers. Circumstances do not make the man, they simply reveal him to himself. Your response to adversity of life is the real measure of who you are and what you're made of.
Cheers, mate.
Pat, so good to have you on today, mate. 13 years overdue. But yeah, I'm just really proud of you, to be honest with you, of the man that you are, the father, the husband, and what you're doing with your life, mate. I've always been a big fan. I'm always stalking your content and looking at what you're doing. So I'm proud of you, mate.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you, mate.
I do have a closing tradition of the podcast.
Okay.
I tried to get Renee, didn't reply to me.
Oh, okay.
So my closing tradition is I don't actually ask the last question. I get family and friends. They send in questions for the guests. Renee didn't want to send a question in.
What?
Bitch. Sorry, Renee. I called out. I'm just kidding. She didn't reply to me.
Yeah.
So we've got a mutual friend of ours, a good friend, Furzy.
Oh, I know. Love that guy.
Yeah. Where is he? How have you managed having a history of family mental illness and the urge to ignore genetics or traits and just battle through versus leaning into history, acknowledging it? And what are some everyday tactics to overcome some of the inner battles? Deep, Furzy.
Look, you can't fight genetics.
Yeah.
There's inherent things that there's nature, nurture, and genetics are profoundly impactful on so many things about us. But knowing that is it's a potentiality that I'm at a higher risk. I've never taken drugs in my life because of that potential risk. That's how some of my family members have kind of instigated it all. So it just wasn't worth it, for me personally. But it's, I guess, man, it's just really like knowing that life is short and I want to make the most out of it. I want to live with it, live it to the highest degree.
Yeah.
I really think nature grounds us, and this adventure retreats and my infatuation with the cosmos and just looking at the detail and things.
Like I do remember you love looking at the stars, eh?
Yeah.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
Out in the bush, and you'd be like, you know what that is there?
Renee would be laughing. Sorry.
Really?
Every night, like, hey, look, that's Mars, that's Venus, and look at this sunset.
That's what you do, man. Like that's exactly what I think about. You're squeezing the lemon dry out of life.
Yeah.
You are though.
Yeah.
The best possible way. Like you're getting the most you can out of life, but also, enjoying the moments that matter.
Yeah, definitely. I love life. I think understanding the terrible things that happen in this on this earth, the terrible things that can happen, and having a realistic perspective of everything also creates that contrast. Like I miss summer because it's so cold. Oh, I miss the cold because it's so hot. So these contrasts and perspectives on everything is really important. Like if we were constantly rich, right, commodities, like we're in a problem, like everything wouldn't be an issue. You'd lose the value of things. And I think that's important to know that the bad accentuates the good. But yeah, making the most of things, mate, and trying to keep it as simple and just be as humble as possible because everyone has faults. And it's important to, like you said, accept yourself, but know like when you are below the standard and when you're doing something wrong and being honest and open about it. And but yeah.
Is there a question that you would like to ask me?
Mate, where do you want to take this podcast, and what would that mean to you?
That's something that me and Jordan have been thinking about a lot. I work away in the mines, and I want to do this full time, forever.
For sure.
I have always been very jealous of people where it gets to like a Sunday night, and they're going, I can't wait to get to work, because I've never experienced that. Even when I was playing footy, the pressures and the stress and anxiety of performing sort of outweighed almost the joy of playing sometimes. And Jordan's got a job now where come Sunday night and she's like, I'm buzzing for tomorrow. And I've had mates that have been like that, and I've never had that. I've never had that moment I was like, where it didn't feel like work, where it felt like people are going and they purely love their job for what they're doing. Never had it until now, where every time I leave the mines, I come back here and I feel like this is truly me. I feel like out the mines, I'm sort of playing a character and not sort of expressing myself authentically. But here in this moment with you, I feel like this is my true authentic self. And it's like the best feeling that I could get. And people sort of say like, I don't make any money off this, but I could keep doing this and not make any money off this, and still have the best time ever. If I could one day do this full time, incredible. Like what I'm learning, not only about myself, but other people, the knowledge I'm getting, the relationships, that connection that I'm building. I love this.
It's good.
It lights me up. It really does.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the idea of being able to do something like, I think, a lot of us can get stuck because we are exposed to social media, which portrays the highlight reel of everyone's life, and people can be like, yeah, this is great, and not be true, not be genuine. And it kind of warps the reality for everyone else who follows. Like, am I the only one going through hard things? Or, man, am I the only one with a shitty job? But I think with this journey that you're on and countless other people, it's a means to an objective. You being in the mines allows you the ability to then do everything you need to kind of build this. And I think many people who have done well for themselves in this category, but everything else, it's like, dude, I was working 10 years before this came in eventuality.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's going to take you 10 years, but we place so much pressure on ourselves because all we see is the finished product, the end product of so many people who haven't shared the honest truth, or you don't see what it took to get there, or you're not getting the current.
It's the tip of the iceberg or something, isn't it? They see the success story, but they like even Joe Rogan, he's on, he signed a $200 million podcast deal. He's like, I didn't make any money for 7 years. But no one remembers that. Everyone remembers him signing the big deal, and now he's the biggest podcast in the world. Yep. But everyone forgets that he did 7 years and he made no money.
Yeah,
and like you're going back, you need that driving force that's got to be more than just you're talking about money. It's if I wasn't at the mines, I wouldn't have the time or the money to be doing the podcast.
Of course.
At the same time, like this lights me up more than money itself.
Yeah,
this is what fills my cup up. So if I could keep doing this every day,
mate, I could keep chatting. I'm like, we only got 90 minutes. Literally 90 minutes now.
Mate, so good. I'll be keen to do maybe a round 2. Maybe I'll head over to Perth and we can do a round 2 over there.
Yeah.
But again, mate, thank you so much for coming on. Not just this chat, but just reconnecting after so many years. And like I said before, it's so good to see you and follow your life and what you're up to. So again, thank you very much.
Appreciate it, man. It was a wholesome podcast. It took me through a lot of emotions, and mate, thanks for your kind words.
Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Mind Your Head. If you'd like to support the show, be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really supports the show and helps others discover us. Don't forget to join us on Instagram and TikTok at mindyourhead.podcast.